Okay, so I ended my last video with a very grim reminder for the Aston Martin crew. I sure do hope they got everything together in that week between two parts of testing.
It's disappointing, really. Yeah, look at that. It's just sad scenes.
Yeah, it is.
And I really hope we're not looking at a similar sight in Australia. Although I can't see much hope.
Why? Why? Man! So it's gonna be one of those seasons, huh? Oh well, we can try later when Aston scores no points throughout the season. But we're not there yet, so how about we sniff some of that delicious hopium and let's keep on moving, shall we? Hey you, this is Tank, and I got tons of F1 to talk about because the preseason testing in Bahrain has ended. You know what this means, right? This year of racing is about to begin, and it would be great to quickly catch up on everything that took place on the deserts of Bahrain. So, what happened? I don't know if you have been keeping track, so let me quickly sum it up for you. The season starts, but not really, with the preseason testing. This year, since we got new regulations, which is basically a new set of rules that teams have to abide, there are two parts of testing in Bahrain and a shakedown in Barcelona beforehand. Well, we are currently here. Hey, hi, take a seat. We're gonna be here for 3 days, so there's plenty of action to cover. But let's start with the biggest takeaways from Bahrain testing part 1. So, the top 4 from the last season remains: McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes. They got their shit right. Which of them is the best is up for debate, but I ranked them just like I did in my previous sentence. Haas is reliable for the first time and probably leads the midfield just ahead of Alpine, Audi, Williams and Vickard. All of them have their issues, but are mostly on point. Cadillac are the new kids on the block, and they have a lot of creativity in terms of designing their car, but they are most likely going to be at the back most of the time. And speaking of being at the back, Aston Martin had tons of issues and were off the pace like never before, so if I were you, I would expect them at the back every single time. Let's talk about the issues first. Morning session of day 1 saw a few of them, though with very different nature between them. Fernando Alonso, for example, got out, did about a lap, and came back straight to the pits. Similar story for Isaac Hadjar. The Frenchman got 13 laps in and did not show up for the rest of the session. Alonso came back shortly after, but only so that he can show everyone how magnificent a loose sensor looks like behind the car. Thank you, Fernando, very cool. That was already 16 minutes into the session. In that time, Pierre Gasly got a result better than the entirety of testing part 1. Sergio Perez became the only driver taking part in the morning session not to come out of the garage, and Nico Hülkenberg stole the engine twice while practicing a start. I'm not bashing him, seems like the new cars are very susceptible to that. Gotta watch out for possible stallers at the start of Australian Grand Prix. Guess the machines aren't as happy as we are to begin the season. You know who else wasn't happy? Fernando Alonso, who was insanely frustrated coming out of the last corner and stomped on the throttle with the might of Zeus before going back to the pits a few moments later. Sadly, he didn't show up until the end of the session. Charles Leclerc kept going super wide in turn 4, but he also had a very nice 1:33.7 time that got him to the top, where he remained for quite a while. Finally, after the first 18 minutes were gone, Sergio came out of the garage, but only completed 1 lap and got back straight to the pits. That was one of his 24 laps this session, so I really hope Cadillac got all the information necessary out of it. Alex Albon decided he wanted to show up in my summary and created the widest possible entrance into turn 10 I have seen in years. His morning was not very eventful, but that's exactly what Williams needed. 55 laps and no drama. Well, maybe except a little fight he had with Antonelli in turn 13 of all places. Both the Thai driver and the Italian delivered some solid sessions, with the latter delivering a huge 69 nice laps, which is more than twice what he managed a week earlier. Proud of you guys. Lando Norris also put on a show as he went into a cloud of smoke as he locked his tires while heading to the pit lane. It looked way worse than it actually was, as he didn't suffer from any issue, rather just tested the braking boundaries of the new machines. Well, that's what testing is for, trying stuff out, even if it doesn't work. What also didn't work is the V-carb of Arvid Lindblad, who seemingly lost all power in his car, slowing down massively, but resolved the issue while still in car. This is both a good and a bad sign. It's great that the mechanics could help restart the engine remotely, but imagine this happens in the middle of the race and suddenly it's not that fun. Either way, a good session for the rookie saw him complete 75 laps, but he did not really set the track ablaze with his pace. The following afternoon brought way more emotion early on. A huge lockup by Lewis Hamilton started a series of those, with the biggest definitely belonging to Lance Stroll. Canadian losing the engine during the downshift, or at least it felt like it, because as much as people like to clown on Lance, he had nothing to do with what happened to his AMR. Still, he ended up in gravel and caused the first stoppage of the Bahrain pre-season testing part 2. It took 5 hours to happen, but it was finally there. What also felt like 5 hours was the wait to see Cadillac back on track. Checo was out after 18 minutes in the morning session, and now Valtteri came out after 90. They both suffered the same fate. Go out, complete one lap, come back to the pits. At least Bottas got more laps on the board, as he ended the day with 35 under his belt. Not before committing a hate crime on his front tires, as he locked them in a huge cloud of smoke. An assist for Lance Stroll, who decided he wants in on whatever the Finn was doing. Everyone was simply looking for a better time, but in the end it was the usual suspects. Russell, Piastri and Leclerc topping the day 1 in this exact order. Day 2 saw Max Verstappen, who had to set out the first day in favor of Isaac Hadjar. The Dutchman was instantly on it, getting slidey, racy and locking the fronts on his first timed lap. He kept exchanging fastest laps with Lando Norris in the morning session, which kept it interesting for quite a while. But it's not like we were bored to death. Something to keep at least me interested was the innovative back wing of the SF26. Ferrari decided that they can experiment with some unusual stuff. Their active aero parts, active meaning that they can be used in different modes, turning 100 degrees instead of simply laying down or opening like the rest of the grid. I would never thought it possible, but here we are. Hopefully this thing works good enough for Ferrari to keep it throughout the season, cause it looks magnificent. Williams on the other hand should probably get rid of some weight, as the word around the paddock was that their car was rather heavy to say the least. I don't know how much the drivers were affected by that, but if I am to guess, it wasn't too terrible, as Alex Albon was able to post his time at the higher end of the table, meaning he can at least cope with the weight of the car. I am cautiously optimistic, but you and I both know it's easier to gain a few kilos than to lose them. But let's head back to Ferrari. While Lewis completed a few laps with his new wing, Bortoleto, Lawson, Bottas and the 7-time world champion himself were plagued by some sort of issues, as all of them completed less than 10 laps after 2.5 hours of the morning session. Hamilton and Lawson hurt the most, as while Gabriel and Valtteri managed to get some mileage on the board, the unfortunate Ferrari and Vicar drivers were left with very little time behind the wheel. I said that Gabriel Bortoleto got some mileage, but the time spent in the pit was nothing short of insane. The Audi mechanics building a wall to protect the car from camera view suggests there were some major issues happening. At least later on in the afternoon, when Hulk took over the Audi, the team got some more info and a very nice, respectable P5 time to go along with it. Huge shout out to Berman for creating a highlight reel lockup. Not gonna bash him for that, I simply feel that's a common thing nowadays. His was just a little bit extra. Liam Lawson wanted to get a little bit extra lockup too, but in his mind the little extra meant that he's just going to do it 27 million times. Okay, listen, I know the Kiwi was just trying to get as much as he can out of that V-car because he was not gonna be present on day 3, but there was some crazy amount of flat spotting. I can only guess the cars are just quite the handful, cause Oscar Piastri also had a pretty scary moment at turn 12 at the beginning of the afternoon session. His car bottoming out and almost snapping out of the control, but Piastri's rapid reflexes allowed him to catch it in time. Not everyone could try their reflexes with such issues, as the most difficult car to work with, the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, had to take the center of the stage. Fernando kept locking up throughout the entire session, and it wasn't just turns 1 and 10, the Spaniard was smoking his wheels almost everywhere on the track, further showcasing I wasn't exactly wrong when I called it the worst car in the previous video. Finally, a good prediction. And I got proven right even harder when the 2-time world champion came to a stop with 3 hours left on the clock, his engine screaming for its life before it was shut down at the exit of turn 4. That makes 2 red flags, and both of them are going to Aston Martin. Dominant fashion. Sadly, as opposed to Lance the day before, Fernando did not get back on track later in the session. Oh, also, fun fact. The car wasn't exactly instantly tidied up from the track as we were used to seeing. The flashing lights on the mirrors suggesting the battery is still charged, so as per instructions, the marshals did not touch the car until the mechanics with special gloves came over and turned it off safely. Why am I talking about this? Well, in race scenario, that could elongate the yellow and red flag periods, meaning that those electric engines come with yet another huge downside we haven't really explored yet. Liam Lawson had one of the craziest snaps I have seen in a while. While traversing through turns 7 and 8, he snapped to the left, much to the surprise of the camera crew. Funnily enough, Piastri broke down during the red flag procedure at 2 minutes left, adding a lot of actual issues to an otherwise fictional scenario. I guess if we practice for real. He was still top of the timing sheets for the most of the afternoon, but Antonelli stole the best time by about 600ths, with Verstappen rounding up the top 3. A huge shoutout to Franco Colapinto, who had a very decent day for Alpine, completing 120 laps and scoring time good enough for P6. We also saw Hamilton absolutely acing the practice starts in both sessions, instantly overtaking his rivals from way downtown. Looks like Ferrari is on another level in terms of starting the race. Should they get a solid result in qualifying, they could get straight to P1 on the start straight alone. Aston Martin were testing pit stops dry, with no driver in the car. Issues with the battery and a shortage of spare parts rendered Lance and his car stationary for almost the entire day. Almost the entire day, cause the Canadian left the garage at 15 minutes left until the end of the morning session. He still completed only 6 laps, which is crazy for 8 hours of running. That's 1 lap every hour and 20 minutes. With that type of pace, Aston Martin will complete the Australian Grand Prix while we're enjoying the summer break. Okay, that was just depressing. Let's focus on something fun for a moment. Like Haas, testing wet condition tires on a bone-dry track. Of course, this is all according to plan. The team gets data it wouldn't otherwise get. Sure, this is not perfect, cause the results are just the rubber being shredded on a super hot asphalt, but it's better than nothing. If there's anyone on the grid who knows how the intermediates work, it's Haas and Esteban Ocon, who had a pleasure of testing those. Third time's the charm, as they always say, and the same goes for Cadillac, as Sergio Perez comes out for good this time, and now he's back to the pits after just 1 lap. Third day in a row, Caddy gets 0 data in the first 90 minutes. I know they are a new team, but them and Aston might be in actual trouble this time. Why? Because 107% rule might be a thing this season, and that scares me. To quickly explain, basically if at any point during a race weekend a car is within 107% of the top time, it will be allowed to race. If it is not, the team is prohibited from taking part in the Grand Prix. There might be some leniency at the start of the season, but this is genuinely scary prospect that because of the condition of the AMR and Cadillac, we might not get 22 cars on the grid for the whole season. But back to what happened. Kimi Antonelli caused the red flag halfway through the morning session and did not return to get more laps in. I told you the Mercedes is unreliable. I have to retract some of that, as the team led by Toto Wolff clearly got on top of most of the issues, but some little gremlins remain. Is it problematic? Yes, it is. Can they make it work? So long as the 2 cars are in each race, at least one of them should make it to the finish line. Not the best stat, but if Merc does make it to the finish line, it will probably do it somewhere at the top. Charles Leclerc topped the morning session, however, it wasn't too important, as the afternoon session of the last day is the most, let's say, telling. The last 4 hours always produce the fastest times and maybe even some glory runs. You can't look too much into those, but they do provide valuable content for us, spectators. Funnily enough, nobody went out in the first 6 minutes of the afternoon session. Nothing too crazy, just a little note to keep things fresh. The drought was stopped by Ollie Behrman and Lance Stroll, but some teams took their sweet time. McLaren, for instance, opting to stay in the garage for over 2 hours. There seemed to be no panic on board, so my best guess is there were some setup changes that prepared the car for the hands of our current world champion. He still had enough time to complete 47 laps and secured the second fastest time, good 8.5 tenths behind Leclerc, who I believe had the much lighter car to make the difference look this big. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. We cannot forget about others who, well, mostly struggled. Gabriel Bortoleto, for instance, staying in the pits for the 90 minutes of the session, which slashed his practice in half, but it thankfully did not completely wreck his training and data gathering. Good, because Audi may need every lap like oxygen. Williams felt like it was slightly struggling due to missing Barcelona shakedown, but now that Bahrain testing is over, they seem to be just a tiny bit on the back foot instead of being far behind. They got a lot of valuable data, and now the question remains if they can turn it into results. If the rumors are true, it's only their weight that's holding them back, which is true for lots of us, so hey, I can relate. But you know who didn't struggle at all? Haas. Crazy, I know, right? I'm super optimistic for them. Banger sessions again and again, no real issues and a respectable pace that can see them score points regularly. I guess you just did a great job during testing, Haas. Good job. If you compare the stats between testing part 1 and testing part 2, most of the teams, aside of Aston Martin of course, got on top of their issues and completed a healthy amount of laps. As for the drivers, mostly the same story, aside for maybe Isaac Hadjar, and of course, again, both Aston Martin drivers. The scariest prospect for Lance Stroll, 32 laps behind the wheel in those 3 days, and 140 laps in testing overall, is a recipe for tragedy. Okay, what about the lap times? Well, the distance on the finish line between the leader and the other cars also got a little bit narrower, and again with the exception of Aston Martin, who is still clearly 4 seconds off the pace. Good job praises to Racing Bulls and Alpine for shrinking that difference by a large margin. I would guess I wasn't too far off with my predictions the last time out. If you're out of the loop, the pecking order according to me looked as following. First would be McLaren, with Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes, and I even would argue Haas close behind. Then Alpine, Audi, Williams and Vickard, with Cadillac rounding up the 10. And then Aston Martin, just fighting to stay afloat. To put it bluntly, the last prediction couldn't be more on point. Aston is in so much trouble, I am scared they might not be finishing races purely out of their car being so shit. That's a fucking letdown and a half. I want to believe, and I will believe, that they will bounce back eventually, but when will that eventually even happen? Oh man, I wish I knew. But let me sum up the testing for you. McLaren is still strong, with top pace and solid mileage once again. To me, they are clear favorites coming to the 2026 season. Ferrari seems to be most keen on inventing new stuff and actually ready to start from the get-go. I would like to see them dominate the start of the season, but I believe pure consistency of McLaren is just too much for the prancing horses. Mercedes overtakes Red Bull in my eyes. They got more info, are way more consistent and seem to be on top of the issues with the car they clearly had just a week prior. Meanwhile, Red Bull works rather well until it doesn't, just like the week ago. Haas doesn't have the speed, but I predict a podium for them this season. They just look sharp and the car works well, so why wouldn't they get to the top at one occasion? The Alpine might surprise a lot of people, but ultimately they seem to be just behind the top 5. Audi is where I would draw the line between constant scorers and occasional scorers. They greatly understand motorsport and Formula 1 is no exception to them. This is their first season, so I believe they need more time to start getting podiums and wins, but they are far from the bottom. Williams looks to be slightly lagging behind, but if anyone tells you they have huge problems, don't believe them. They can get everything done. It is pace that they are lacking in this moment in time. The Racing Bulls might be a slight letdown, currently at the bottom of the middle pack, rather quick to get things done, but not as quick on track. Caddy is a new team in their first season, and they have all my love for them, but let's not kid ourselves. They will be on the bottom of the timing sheets for most of the season. The question is how far behind. And then there's Aston fucking Martin. I am so shocked by how bad the things have turned out for them. Missing parts, missing pace, missing balance, missing laps, missing info. Hell, if they don't get a hurry up, they might be missing themselves due to 107% rule. But all of this means there's hell of a season ahead of us. 22 cars is better than 20, that's for sure. Testing is almost done as we still get 3 more practice sessions in Melbourne. After that, it's lights out and we will understand how much the Bahrain testing has translated into reality when the real racing begins. And when it does, come over and join me in talking about everything that happened. But for now, I gotta go. See ya!